Hey, dear listeners, 90 Day Fiancé, the couple's tell-all. Let's watch.
You could be whatever aggressive you need to, but you should support your man more with the fight.
When I hear this, I think he has so many things that would be great for him in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I know. I do get that. I do agree. I mean, I agree. When he first told me, I was like, okay, so you could live out there and you could come.
Okay, so more evidence that they are at least in a situation where they're going to work out, that when he first brought the idea, I mean, just think about how Emily reacted to just seeing an email that Kobe clicked on a link for Ohio, and how Emily reacted to that. It was, very different from what we're hearing here, that she was like, okay, yeah, I could see that. I get that. It makes sense. And how would we work this out? Because I think for her, she's thinking, I don't want to live in Vegas. And two, my family is here. I know who, maybe even her job, I don't know. But she's like, okay, how can we work this out?
Like back and see me and stuff and not me. And he's like, no. I kind of like the freedom of like, oh yeah, I'm married, but I'm doing my own thing.
Is your version of...
Okay, interesting. So she's saying that does line up with, I think, the way she was before she met Biniyam, which is much more of a non-traditional, free spirit-ish sort of person, and values moving that, because of all the travel that she was involved in before we met her on the show. And she's like, yeah, I mean, if you want to live in Vegas and come back and forth, we could do that. That would work. And that kind of fits with my thing, because I like to do my own thing. I don't need you around all the time, which is interesting to think about if it doesn't line up with preoccupation. And if I were her friend, unless they've gone through a lot of therapy, him being in Vegas, I'm just going to take a guess, would just be a massive trigger for her, unless it was brief. Like if it was just a week, then maybe they could manage it. But if it went for longer than that, I'm guessing that even if her conscious mind was like, everything's fine, I think some trauma would start to get triggered by that. I mean, along those lines, did I talk about this? That when Stacy had COVID a couple months ago, we isolated in our own house. She mainly just stayed in her office, and I stayed in mine, but she didn't come out very often, and so we would see each other, but she would have a mask on, or we would be outside and 10 feet away from each other, and that lasted for a couple weeks, I think. And the first week, I remember thinking like, okay, we can do this, and so she was gone with her family on a family vacation, or her parents, for a week, and then she got it on that vacation, and then when she came back, we were separated for another week, and for that week it was doable. But then that third week, even though on my conscious mind I was like, well, we need to be doing this is a good idea, and we can talk outside, but there was a growing feeling in my heart of feeling that I was hurt, and I was feeling it. I'm thinking, why am I hurt? This doesn't make any sense, because there's nothing happening, right? But I started having these hurt feelings, and also these hurt thoughts, like reactions to some feeling of pain. And then a week of that went by, and I kept trying to tell myself, what's going on? Like, what? I'm trying to differentiate, trying to look at it, but it didn't push it away. The feeling didn't go away until she tested negative for a while, and then because she was terrified that she was going to infect me, and so it was she was much more worried about infecting me than I was worried about being infected, and I'm pretty paranoid about getting infected, so she was terrified, and so I had to pull the ripcord, if you will, and I just went into her office and hugged her and kissed her. I said, I think we're done with the isolation thing, and the feeling went away, and she was happy that it was over, and we sometimes, maybe, or at least I did, underestimate the power of actually the experience of connection. We can tell ourselves we're connected. We can convince ourselves. Because the other thing, when we did see each other, she would often have a mask on, and she's there, but you can't see facial expression. And a lot of our connection is through communication, nonverbal, through the face. And then, of course, hugging and kissing and being close to each other. That's where we evolved. We didn't evolve on the Pleistocene African savanna to live like that, to live without being able to see each other, without being three-dimensional in each other's space, close to each other, aware of each other. And I guess I say this also because when the pandemic happened, a lot of people that didn't have a partner, they were completely isolated, or at the very least, even if they did have a partner, just isolated from a lot of people. And I think it really highlighted the importance that the internet is great and social media is great and video chatting is great and texting is great, but maybe phone calls are great, but it's not a substitute for actual human 3D in-person full interaction, no mask. Now, I'm not saying masks are bad, they are important, but we need to engineer our lives such that we can have that in a safe way and understand that we probably all need it. So, another random tangent. Today is tangent day, so get used to it.
Marriage align with Benny's version?
Oh, so my point was, if I didn't say it, was that for her, she might think, oh, it'd be fine that he's in Vegas, but in her body, it might actually be intolerable past a certain point, which might result in her getting triggered like she was when they were in different, parts of the world, which would lead to all that conflict, which wouldn't be advised, obviously.
So I love that. On the other hand, there's still a part of me that's like, oh my God, being in, I want to run away screaming because it's like scary to be in a committed relationship. And it's scary because I do love Vinny. And like when I get crazy, like trying to spar with MMA fighters in gyms, it's because I actually care about him. Like if I didn't care about him, I wouldn't even.
Interesting insight and awareness and vulnerability there, taking responsibility. So she's saying that he's teaching me about commitment and stability, whereas for me, I think what she's saying is she kind of vacillates back and forth to more extremes where on one hand, she's like super concerned and super worried about him, but then she has to pull away from that, and her way of pulling away from that is to distance herself. And, that can work, but it sounds more like she could benefit from a lot of therapy to recover from the underpinnings of why she gets so worried about things. And I've been talking about that since, maybe 5 episodes in watching her, I don't know how many seasons ago. So it sounds like maybe that's what's happening. And I don't know, just a hypothesis that in the past, when she was a free spirit, she was traveling the world, maybe that was part of it, that she vacillates between those two positions where she gets too into people and it becomes overwhelming, and then she's like, I'm out, and then she just completely avoids. And what some people will say when I talk about attachment styles is they'll say, well, I'm definitely preoccupied because, I definitely lean in and pursue and obsess and are overly worried. But then I'm also avoidant because there are long stretches of my life where I just completely, pull away from relationships and I am avoiding relationships. So I'm both preoccupied and avoidant. Often when I conduct an interview, we get more information. The individual, what I will conceptualize, and it's not a science per se, it's just a way of conceptualizing things. In the spirit of the John Bowlby, Mary Ainsworth categorization, I would say the person's preoccupied with occasional avoidant reactivity to their preoccupation. It becomes overwhelming, so they avoid. But that's not avoidant.
All right, I want to switch gears. Have you traveled back to Ethiopia recently?
Yeah, I was in Ethiopia for 3 months.
3 months?
Yeah.
What were you doing there for 3 months?
So I was helping with some of the camps for displaced people because there's a war in Ethiopia. So I was raising money and I helped deliver food and supplies to one of the camps there.
Wow. Did you take...
Wow. I mean, that's fantastic. I didn't even know that about her, that she would do that. She was raising money and helping people. I mean, that's tremendous. It's highly laudable.
Take Avi with you?
I did. I wanted Avi to see friends and family in Ethiopia as well. And I didn't expect to stay for 3 months. It got prolonged. And honestly, I think it was good for us to have a break from each other for a little while. Like I like to I don't know, I'm overwhelming and you're annoying. I love you, but it was good to get away.
That makes it sound more like it might be a functional pendulum swing between being overwhelming and overwhelmed to I need a break and recover and have some air to breathe and then come back. Maybe she does make it work. I'm guessing that for him, it's not what he wants. I think he he wants it to be more stable, more, consistent.
For each other for a little bit.
How did you feel being away from Avi for 3 months?
It's very hard because when she left it, I know she leave him for a week. Like that's what I know. Even
You
I'm
had
not,
no idea it was going to be for 3 months.
Yeah.
What do I think about that? I guess we'd have to hear their conversations, because if he's like, you got to come home, and she's like, nah, I'm going to stay and I'm going to keep your kid away from you for 3 months, that's pretty awful. Unless he's like, well, okay, we don't know the nature of the conversations. It was hard for him, but did he consent to that, or did she just overrule him and say, nope, you're not going to see your kid? I could see it going either way. It is ironic, though, that she was in Ethiopia for 3 months and he was in the States. I mean, it's just ironic.
What happened when you were in Ethiopia and Benny was back in the States? How did you guys do with your communication?
So I was nervous that I would have to go through the same traumatic experience of not being able to get in touch with him, and he would turn off his phone or he wouldn't communicate with me. So I was like, you know what? Let me just not deal with that. So I pulled a Benny on him. I just blocked him.
Blocked him? I mean, the beginning of that sounded, I don't know. It's hard to know because Biniyam would have to speak up, and he probably won't given his demeanor, but it could be healthy. She's just like, okay, I thought I had enough awareness to know that I would be preoccupied, triggered through that distance. And so my way of coping with it is that I had a system where I just would be really vigilant about not getting involved in that. Just like, I'm just going to trust that everything's going to work out and I'm going to proceed. I mean, one thing that I will work on as an interim state for preoccupied people is to get to a place where, say someone like Ariela was working with me and they're like, I'm going on this trip, how do we approach it? And one of the elements out of maybe 100 different elements would be for the preoccupied individual to get used to and accept the notion that their partner might cheat on them. And really all of us have to accept this, because your partner can cheat on you and might be cheating on you at any time, or could have cheated on you in the past. And you'll just never know. And for a lot of people, that is intolerable, right? And of course, it's not something you want, and it's not okay for someone to betray you that way if you have an exclusive agreement. But you just have to live with that ambiguity. It's sort of like you have to live with the ambiguity that people can die at any time. Now, you don't have to think about it every day. It's not like, oh, well, my partner's at work, he could be cheating on me right now. Yeah, you don't have to constantly traumatize yourself with that possibility. But sometimes a way of pulling out of preoccupation and going towards security is to be able to say, as a mantra when she's in Ethiopia, it's just like she has this urge to call him and text him and, make sure that she knows where he's at. She said, well, okay, what's really going on? I'm worried that he might be cheating on me, which is really a worry that he's going to leave me. And I have to remind myself that he might cheat on me, he might leave me, but he's probably not going to, but I don't know. And hounding him all day long isn't going to answer that question. There's no way to answer the question. When she was in Ethiopia, he's in the States, unless she has a security camera or something, or a private investigator watching, there's no, and normally you don't have that. There's no way to know. And plus he could be cheating on his phone, right? He could be video chatting or something. There's no way to know. And so you just have to say, well, I can't know that, but the preoccupied individual, it's so intolerable because it's so triggering that they resort to behaviors as a way of trying to answer a question that is unanswerable. They're like, I'm going to answer the question, is he cheating on me? Did he cheat on me? And they pursue, and there's no definitive way that the Biniyams of the world can demonstrate that they're not cheating, because they're just saying, I didn't cheat. It's like, well, but, I saw this picture of you and there was a woman on the other side of the room and, what happened there? And all he can say is, I didn't cheat on you. I don't even know who you're talking about, or that's a friend of a friend or something. There's no way to positively, prove that you aren't cheating. And so for the preoccupied people, it doesn't satisfy, and their feeling doesn't go away, and they don't understand, and they blame the other or try to control or something, when it just begins with the acknowledgement and the acceptance that you just don't know. It could happen. It could be happening right now. It's not likely happening, though. And of course, there are 99 other things to do in this moment, other techniques and therapies that can be utilized to, help people that are preoccupied with the situation. But anyway, so she's saying what she did was she blocked him. Now, maybe for Biniyam, he's like, well, I'd rather have her block me than hound me all the time. So, it's not the best, but it's better than it was before. Or is Biniyam just being left in the dust, just like completely powerless while he can't see his son? He's pleading with her to come home, and she's like, no, and she's blocking him, and he's like, why are you blocking? Is this a passive aggression from her to, show him like this is how it feels? I'm gonna go to Ethiopia for a while, and I'm gonna block you, and I'll show you how you feel. Like, I hope it doesn't sound like that's what it is.
For a little bit, and then
You blocked his number?
Yeah, I blocked his phone number.
Okay, now, Ari, you got upset when Benny did that to you. He blocked your number, and you were furious.
Yeah.
Why was it okay for you to do that to him?
I don't think he even noticed, honestly.
Yeah, I could see her believing that, given the way that Biniyam comes across. My hypothesis is that it's a reactivity from the same attachment and security that she has. It's just a mirror image of it that presents in an opposite way, if that's possible. And so that's not encouraging that she literally believes that he blocked her and didn't care, which I don't think is true. I think he blocked her because, one, his way of trying to, it's important. So if you're a preoccupied person and you have an avoidant partner, it is almost universal that you will conclude that your avoidant partner does not care about your feelings. But it's actually the opposite. They care so much about your feelings that their way of trying to keep the relationship good, which isn't functional, it's also not functional to pursue and control, but their way of trying to manage the relationship is to avoid you, is to block you, is to distance themselves from if they wanted to end it, if they truly didn't care, they would actually leave you, or they would fight with you, because that would escalate in their mind into a breakup. So they're thinking, I'll block her, she'll cool down, everything will be fine. That's not functional because it's triggering the other person, right? But anyway, it's not encouraging that she thinks that it's callous and it's like he doesn't care. That's not a good sign.
But why would you block him? What's the message behind that?
Playing games.
No, I just, I was trying to lessen my control thing and checking on your WhatsApp. And I was like, you know what? I gotta just be focused on Ari. So like, let me just not deal with Vinny.
So I think what I'm hearing is that she is progressing slightly. She's getting better than before. It could have even been a test for herself of just like, okay, I want to separate and see if I can actually do this. And maybe this is one step among 10 big steps that she will take to have a more functional reactivity to him. I could see that. Hopefully Biniyam's okay. We're probably never going to find out one way or the other because he doesn't reveal anything. And typically his way is just to placate. But anyway, so I could see it going the other way. I mean, certainly he's not happy about it, but he might actually be like, well, it's not great, but maybe it was a good thing that she was able to not bother me the whole time. Anyway, so there's that possibility. Or there's another possibility that she's completely aimless and shooting in the dark, and she's trying without any guidance, without any therapy, to grow and change, and completely disregarding how he feels about and the impact it might have on their relationship. Like, I could see it going either way. I think a lot of people are going to receive it as the second way, but I don't know.
It's odd for a husband and wife to block each other.
Yeah, it's odd.
Weird.
It's weird.
Yeah, that's odd.
Yeah, but I don't think it applies here. We saw other couples that would block each other routinely, and in those situations, it was a passive aggression or an aggression, and it was not cool. It was actually trying to hurt the other person's feelings. I suppose there are times on the show when people would block people for good reasons, like they're just being hounded by someone. I don't know. But I don't think this is in that category. It's certainly, if Biniyam is not cool with it, and I hope they ask him, I hope Sean asks him pointedly, like, how do you feel about this? Do you feel like it was fair overall? But without knowing that, it's hard to know exactly, because I could see someone making an argument that, well, I didn't block him to hurt him. I just blocked him because that meant that I wouldn't be tempted to preoccupy on him. I could see that, as long as he was okay with that and on board with that.
And the fact that you were like, I don't think he noticed, I'm like, what? If you blocked me, are you joking? I would notice immediately.
I was blocking him so I couldn't communicate with him.
Right.
And when I came back, and this is why our communication has gotten better, because when I came back, I actually was quiet for one time and I let you talk.
Yeah.
And then I listened to you and I got better.
Okay, that's great. So it sounds like maybe it is the first option, that it was overall therapeutic, and Biniyam does see the benefit that would outweigh the cost. I think I was reading it wrong. It sounds like she was saying, I don't think he noticed that I blocked him, which is not as bad, but still in that direction of just like, really? Like, you don't think? Now, he might just not be I think it's a texting block that she did. I'm just going to take a guess and say that they still talked on the phone. Because 3 months complete radio silence, I just highly doubt that.
Interesting approach.
I mean, I will talk to her like sometimes, but I don't know she's blocked me. Like,
Yeah, he
like
didn't
what I
know.
feel like.
You didn't even know she had blocked
Yeah,
you.
but when I call, it's not working. Maybe, maybe
You were like, okay,
He
whatever.
gives me the
maybe it's
benefit
not-
of the doubt. I don't give him the benefit of the
Yeah,
doubt.
just
Okay, a lot of things are happening. Okay, so we just learned that she was also blocked from calling. So that debunks what I was saying earlier, so maybe they did have complete radios. I'm just also going to take a guess that she would only block him at times, because I have a hard time, but I've been surprised before, but I have a hard time believing that for 3 months they didn't talk, or for the majority of the time they just had no communication. It just doesn't seem likely, but who knows. And then she says, well, when I block him, he gives me the benefit of the doubt by saying, well, maybe she's busy or something. I don't give him the benefit of the doubt. So that shows insight. That's a huge statement, what she said right there, because that says part of her, and she's demonstrated this before, I think particularly this season, that I don't give him the benefit. I essentially make things up. If he doesn't answer the phone, I fill in the gap with something horrible, which is what she was doing, I believe, that entire time. It seems as though he wasn't cheating when he was, in Ethiopia and she was in the States for her kid to have surgery, and their conflict escalated. And, she was convinced he was cheating, he was doing all these horrible things, and he's like, I wasn't. Now, maybe he did, but I think they concluded in the end that he wasn't cheating. The mom, I remember, had to talk with him and concluded he wasn't cheating. Who knows? Maybe he was.
Wow. So you consider it healthy to block him?
No, but it worked.
Yeah. Now, if I were their therapist, I would really dig down on this. I could get on board with it, but of course I would say, this is not the end goal, But you know what? I could see, I've never done this, but I could see collaborating with a couple on doing something like this. Like, consider it an exercise, an opportunity to grow, to be like, or I guess it would have to be, well, I wouldn't feel comfortable in individual therapy conspiring against Biniyam and agreeing that it's okay to lie to him, because she was essentially lying to him. She was blocking him and not telling him. He would call and say like, oh, well, I guess she's busy. And he wouldn't say that, she wouldn't say, well, if you called me, it's because that's lying by omission, so I wouldn't be okay with that. But I could see if a couple came in and they were dealing with their problem, and I would never suggest this, but if she suggests, like, do you think this will be a good idea? We talk. Biniyam, are you okay with that? He's like, well, I'm not, it's not great. And be like, well, there are some potential benefits, because I could see that's like an opportunity for her to experience the separation and get acclimated to it, to habituate to separation physically and not be so terrified of it. Because if she has abandonment, betrayal trauma, which I think she does, I don't know that obviously, but she exhibits the signs of it, then to be separate without any knowledge of what the other person is doing and just have relaxation and say, everything's okay. I want to pursue, but everything's going to be fine. And I'm in control. Anytime I can go home, but I'm choosing not to. This isn't forced on me. I'm okay. I'm going to get used to it. It's essentially exposure therapy, experiential therapy that would be akin to if you had a fear of spiders and you habituate to the stimulus of spiders. You start off with visualizing and you get habituated to that, where that no longer freaks you out. Then you see a video of a very small spider and you stare at it for 30 minutes for 5 sessions. And at the end of that time, you're habituated to that, and watching a video no longer distresses you. And then, you slowly graduate. It could be a version of that for her. I'm just like, okay, I succeeded. I got my body used to being separate and nothing bad happened. The catastrophe that in my body felt like what was going to happen never happened. And so I'm way more relaxed now, and I'm able to listen better and differentiate more. It kind of sounds like that's what's happening. But again, everything hinges on how Biniyam sees this. Is he okay with, hopefully Sean says, Biniyam, are you okay with all this? All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.